Paul in Gulf Shores. You're on Winning It Live with Gregory Ricks. How can we help you, Paul?
Hey, guys, love the show. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm a little concerned over, I have three, it kind of went right into with what you guys were talking about. I've got on one of the commercials just now. I have three old 401ks, and I did the unthinkable, and I've kind of managed those three myself. I really have kind of done pretty well with them, and I'm 54 years old, and now I'm considering pushing these into like a managed network. And I asked the screener if it was okay to say their name, but it's Fisher Investments, and I'm out of state, so I'm a couple states away. So I was looking at that, and I just wanted I was kind of telling my wife about it. I've done a lot of research on them, and I like the fact that they're I think it's a fiduciary or whatever, where they are compensated for their performance, and they're not trying to really sell you all types of investments. They're more incentivized on their performance, which sounded really good. But and I'm not asking you to smear them in any way, but is there anything to be cautious about with one of these large firms, even if they have safeguards in place? Are there anything that you need to be weary of? The amount of money is around $570,000. So.
I knew that.
I just wanted to get y'all's opinion on that.
Yeah, and stick with us, Paul. Here, I knew it was going to be over 500,000 because that's their commercial. If you have 500,000 or more, then you should call Fisher Investments. And we work with people. I run a financial advisory firm in my day job, and have done that for a long time. And we don't judge people by asset amount, but on scenarios, can we help them? And with another point there is Fisher Investments is not the only firm that works from a fiduciary standpoint. A lot of firms, and the thing you have to do, and I'm glad you brought that up because we don't talk about that often, but I always kind of look at two parts: is who you're working with what I refer to as dual licensed, and then do they have and I kind of define it as the fiduciary license, but the Series 65 or RIA, IAR, and a lot of businesses out there, and they're all supposed to put you first, but certain licenses and scenarios dictate that. So once again, Fisher's not the only fiduciary firm out there, which they're supposed to put you first. Just like at my firm, we put the client first, no matter what. No matter what, we're thinking about their interest and nothing else. How can we help accomplish that? And then they point out and I go back to dual licensed firms, and the firm we're speaking of kind of does these commercials where they hate on annuities, and really what they're talking about is they're hating on variable annuities, which requires a securities license, and a fiduciary could put you in a variable annuity, and I kind of frown upon that. I'm not a fan of those as well, but I am a fan of the asset class of fixed annuities, where the principal is not at market risk in those tools also. So I think, when you're looking for somebody to help you, should be dual license, because that's a very important asset class to consider in the mix of what you're doing. Another thing about the firm you mentioned is they mostly do stock selection, Paul. And historically, stock picking typically does not do as well. When you look at from a standpoint of using indexes, they skew a higher return over time. So, and the stock selection could be more expensive way to have your portfolio managed also. So that's from a couple of standpoints there. You may have reason for using them, but they're not the only guys in town. And, oh, one other thing. You mentioned about the fee. If you make more, they make more. Yeah, they're not the only ones that operate that way as well. That's kind of the way the industry works for the most part. When you get into a situation where somebody, and to understand that difference is basically when they fee assets under management. You know what I'm talking about there, Paul? Do I have you?
I think so.
Okay. You know, it's like, say they charge 1% of assets under management. So if the assets double in 10 years, that 1% is a draw from larger assets. And that's what you want, is you help me grow, well, then you grow as well. Where you get into, and there's a history of products out there like variable annuities can be feed assets, but can also be commission. Fixed annuities can be done that way also, but you also had a lot of firms that were using mutual funds and stuff that kind of were front end loaded with sales charges, and we don't like sales charges that reduce the investments that's going to work. So that's a way to understand that. So, you know, it's kind of like, you know, bottled water. You know, somebody advertising that the water is filtered that they're putting into the bottles and really making a big deal out of that. And I would bet you most of the bottlers of water filter their water. So just think about it that way. Did you have any other questions, Paul? And I appreciate your call and that question.
Well, yeah, I mean, just really, I mean, as far as, you know, as long as you're on top of your game and just kind of making sure you're watching everything, is there anything to kind of be worried about with somebody that's big like that?
Well, do they have an office in Gulf Shores?
They do not.
They do not. You know, now look, an example of this, and this is particular, and I'll just tell you, this is my vibe, and I've been in the business a long time, and we work with a lot of clients and assets. I do have clients across the country in my day job, but you know where the impact of clients, where we have the most clients concentrated, is where we have offices there that they can come in, sit down with an advisor, and talk about their money. It just seems to work that way, even though we have better from that. But you've also got to make sure that they are attuned to you and handling things, and financial planning, money management, and all this covers much more than investments. And that's why we have the guided planning system. I don't mean this to turn into commercial for me, but I think you should be looking at more than just the investments, because it should be about the tax planning, income management, estate planning, and health planning. And sometimes having somebody that knows you, is familiar with you, and can have conversations that extend from those 5 areas that I mentioned to you there. So I think there's more to it than just investment return or stock selection. Hopefully that helps you, Paul. Thanks for the question. I think it gives the listeners a lot of insight. It's good, other than me just coming out and explaining these things. It's always great to have you ask us a question. Thanks for listening to Winning at Life, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, and Gulf Shore's not that far from Gulfport. You got the Gulfport office.
Yeah, we got the Gulfport office. Maybe we have to do a Mobile office one day, help those folks over there even more. I don't know. But, you know, one phone call gets you to any of our offices. Just start with a conversation.
The office number is 504-832-9200. I'm James Parker. We're Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks.